In the grand palace of Persia ruled King Xerxes, one of the most powerful men in the world. His kingdom stretched from India to Ethiopia. It was a place of riches, influence, and danger. But behind the golden gates and royal feasts, a hidden story was unfolding. A story of courage, faith, and one brave woman who risked everything to save her people. Her name was Esther. Esther was a young Jewish woman living in the empire, raised by her cousin Mordecai after her parents died. She was kind, wise, and beautiful, but she kept her Jewish identity a secret. When Queen Vashti was removed from the throne for defying the king, a search began across the empire for a new queen. Esther was taken to the palace prepared for months before seeing the king. When King Xerxes saw her, he was captivated. He placed the crown on her head, and Esther became queen. But no one knew her secret, that she was part of God's chosen people. Not long after Esther became queen, a man named Haman rose to power. He was proud and ruthless. He hated one man above all, Mordecai, Esther's cousin, who refused to bow to him. When Haman found out that Mordecai was a Jew, he didn't just want him punished, he wanted all the Jews in the empire destroyed. He tricked the king into signing a decree that on a certain day all Jews would be killed. The law was sealed with the king's ring. It could not be undone. The clock was ticking. When Mordecai heard of the law, he tore his clothes and wept in the streets. He sent a message to Esther, begging her to go to the king and plead for their lives. But Esther was afraid. "No one goes to the king without being summoned," she said. "If I do, I could die." Then Mordecai replied, "If you remain silent, help will come from somewhere else. But who knows? Maybe you were made queen for such a time as this." Esther knew what she had to do. Esther fasted for 3 days. Then, dressed in her royal robes, she stepped into the inner court. The king saw her. Would he be angry? He smiled and held out his golden scepter. Esther lived. Instead of begging right away, Esther invited the king and Haman to a private banquet. At the first meal, she asked them to come again the next day. Haman was thrilled. He thought he was gaining more favor. But that night, the king couldn't sleep. He asked his servants to read him old records and learned that Mordecai had once saved his life. The next morning, the king had Haman honor Mordecai publicly, the very man he wanted to destroy. At the second banquet, the king turned to Esther and asked, "What is your request, my queen?" Esther took a deep breath and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, please spare my life and the lives of my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed." The king was shocked. "Who would do such a thing?" he asked. Esther turned to Haman and said, "This vile man Haman." The king left in fury. When he returned and saw Haman falling near Esther, he ordered him taken away. Haman was executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. But the law could not be reversed. So the king allowed Esther and Mordecai to write a new one, that the Jews could defend themselves on the day of attack. When the day came, the Jews stood together. They were protected, they were saved, and joy filled their hearts. Esther had risked her life, and God had used her bravery to rescue his people. Esther didn't wear a crown because she wanted power. She wore it because she had a purpose. She stepped forward when fear said, "Stay silent." She stood tall when others would have hidden. Today, her story still whispers to us, "You were born for such a time as this." Thank you for watching this incredible journey through the story of Queen Esther. If you were inspired by this story of courage and purpose, be sure to like, subscribe, and explore more Bible stories brought to life with heart and truth. Because the same God who worked through Esther, still writing powerful stories today.